look at a prayer written by the mother on April 17, 1914, and with my limited mind, I've titled it as The Fatal Illusion. Now, in the last prayer, which was written by the mother on April 13, we saw there was a narration of the mother being in a place called Karaikal, where she experienced a freedom from the shackles of the ego, and she talks of complete surrender over there. So much so that she experienced a freedom where the situations, though they were very, you can say, not comfortable, they were repulsive. And in no way were they conducive to the meditation that we relate to, not peaceful, very disturbing surroundings. Yet she was able to connect to the divine even in those situations. So she experienced a freedom. In this prayer, it is written, the title of the prayer as the mother has given is Pondicherry, April 17, 1914. So it is indicative that she's come back from Karaikal, because in the prayer which she wrote in Karaikal, it was written Karaikal. And there are very few places, only very few of the prayers where even some hint about the place is directly written by the mother. So this is one of those prayers. One of the long prayers written by the mother, very profound, very reflective. And it is a prayer where the mother is actually asking for a lot. Here, it talks about an illusion which is pernicious, which is harmful, and which is an obstruction, one of the, you can say, the most difficult obstructions to overcome in the path of self-purification. And there is an illusion of personality, or one can also say the truth of personality. Now, we all identify ourselves with certain tendencies, certain habits not only of the physical nature, but habits of feelings, emotions, impulsions, willings, and so on, and also a way of life, habit of a way of life, and we relate to it and we call it ourselves, that personality. But actually, it is not ourselves, it is actually a construct of nature. And out of the universal nature, there is a selection which is made by the ego of certain things, picking them up from the universal nature, and the ego self starts thinking that this is the self, this is myself. We and others, we often identify this as our personality. And ego, we know that it is essential, and without it, the individual cannot become an individual. If, for example, we take how a child starts relating to the mother, the child feels hungry, cries, mother comes running, gives food. Slowly, the child learns that if I cry, mommy will come running. So he is now able to identify that she is my mommy, she is my caretaker. Every time I will need something, I have to cry and she will come to me. And later on, the child starts learning that for everything, the mother is there. When the child starts going to school, mommy will say, okay, baby, this is your bottle, water bottle, this is your bag. The child goes to school, settles in a classroom, and the child is able to relate from the environment, or from the surroundings, the child is able to perceive that, okay, this is my classroom, this is my bag, and slowly the sense of the ego starts developing by this choosing and picking from the nature and the situations in which you are actually put. So there is this tendency, and we also know that behind this ego self is also a self, which is our true self. So too, behind this construct of nature, as it starts developing, and which we call our personality, there is a true psychic personality which develops or which is developing over many births, sometimes millennium. It brings out of itself the true mental, the thoughts that make the personality turn towards the divine and seek the divine, and the true vital, those emotions which the individual starts linking to the divine again, and the true physical. So initially it is just a psychic essence, but over many births, over many years, it starts developing into something which we can call as a psychic personality. And once the true mental, true vital, true physical is formed around this essence, the being, for reference, Sri Aurobindo has called it as the psychic being. Now, passing through the gates of birth, death, and rebirth, this psychic personality develops. And birth and death is not something of a reward or a punishment, but it is there so that the psychic essence, the divine essence in us, the seed of the consciousness grows, and it makes the individual come closer to the divine, so much so that now the individual moves on to becoming a true instrument to manifest, and it has tremendous potentialities, and the divine expression and the manifestation can take place through that individual. So the ego was responsible for creating the individual, but then over a period of several lives, many lives, the personality now starts changing into the psychic personality, coming closer to the divine, getting ready to become the instrument of the divine. That is the role of the ego. So, but often we see, what is this illusion? This is an illusion created by the ego of myself as the doer, as the karta. And this is a very separative identity. And the mother in this prayer talks about that how this illusion of the self as I, the doer I, is an obstruction. And she also elaborates what is the way, why it is called so, what is the hindrance that it creates, and how can we actually overcome this, and how can we actually move beyond just being an individual and becoming a true person or a real person. The prayer, Pondicherry, April 17, 1914. O Lord, O Almighty Master, Sole Reality, grant that no error, no obscurity, no fatal ignorance may creep into my heart and my thought. In action, the personality is the inevitable and indispensable intermediary of thy will and thy forces. The stronger, the more complex, powerful, individualized, and conscious is the personality, the more powerfully and usefully can the instrument serve. But by reason of the very character of personality, it easily tends to be drawn into the fatal illusion of its separate existence and become, little by little, a screen between thee and that on which thou willest to act. Not at the beginning, in the manifestation, but in the transmission of the return. That is to say, instead of being, as a faithful servant, an intermediary who brings back to thee exactly what is thy due, the forces sent forth in reply to thy action, there is a tendency in the personality to want to keep for itself a part of the forces with this idea, it is I who have done this or that, I who am thanked, pernicious illusion, obscure falsehood, now are you discovered and unmasked. That is the maleficent canker corroding the fruit of action, falsifying all its results. O Lord, O my sweet Master, soul reality, dispel this feeling of the I. I have now understood that so long as there will be a manifested universe, the I will remain necessary for thy manifestation. To dissolve or even to diminish or weaken the I is to deprive thee of the means of manifestation in whole or part. But what must be radically and definitively suppressed is the illusory thought, the illusory feeling, the illusory sensation of the separate I. At no moment, in no circumstances, must we forget that our I has no reality outside thee. O my sweet Master, my divine Lord, tear out from my heart this illusion so that thy servant may become pure and faithful, and faithfully and integrally bring back to thee all that is thy due. In silence, let me contemplate and understand this supreme ignorance and dispel it forever. Chase the shadow from my heart and let thy light reign in it, its uncontested sovereign. The prayer actually explains the role of the I and how it is necessary and how it can also be a hindrance to bring in the rise of consciousness and move towards higher spirituality. Let us look at, in parts, the prayer. The mother says, O Lord, O Almighty Master, soul reality. When she says soul reality, the divine is the only soul reality. Rest is not reality and can create illusion. So here itself the mother is saying and invoking the divine as the only reality, the sole reality. Grant that no error, no obscurity, no fatal ignorance may creep into my heart and my thought. Now, errors and obscurities are an inherent part of the heart and the mind, and only total knowledge can help heal or overcome these. Now, the whole process of yoga, one can say, tries to do this, that is, remove this errors. So she is praying that there should be no scope for any error, obscurity, any ignorance that stands between you and the being that has been shaped for thy expression and manifestation. So there nothing should come between. And then she reveals step by step in the prayer, she will reveal that this ignorance, how when it is creeping, what is the best way to identify it. She says, in action, the personality is the inevitable and indispensable intermediary of thy will and thy force. Now, personality is the machinery that is given to us to carry out the divine will. And this flawed, ignorant personality is all we have. Yet, it serves a lot of the purpose. And we find that each one of us, each one is unique in a certain sense. Even the selection from the nature that we make is also unique because it depends on the stage of evolution that we are currently in and that we have reached. So, as per the state of evolution, we also start picking from the nature and we start selecting from the nature and contributing towards this personality. The higher the rung of evolution we have reached, the better choices, the refiner choices one is likely to make. But for everyone, it is the path. One has to undergo this evolutionary path and make these selections. So she's saying that the divine force acts through the personality. That is, and that it acts also differently in different individuals. In one, it may act through knowledge. In another person, it may act through the heart, or it may act through a very strong will or impulsion. It may also act through the physical body in different ways. So, there are these different personalities created in nature and through which the divine force acts. And these are instrumental personalities. They are all on their way to become the instrument of the divine. And it is inevitable. And this, you can say, one has to act in a given life. One has to make these selections. And as per the selections, the growth is also facilitated. And the personality starts moving towards the psychic personality. The more wrong choices we make, the longer the time we will have to take. More number of lives, maybe. She says, the stronger, the more complex, powerful, individualized, and conscious is the personality, the more powerfully and usefully can the instrument serve. So, if the development of the personality is very quick and it's very simple and very fast, obviously it cannot be powerful instrument that can hold on for long. And it will, because the individual will require that suppleness, the consciousness will require that suppleness and that wideness which is necessary for the expression and the manifestation. For a personality to become a powerful instrument and an effective intermediary of the Lord, a millennial sadhana done in many lives is needed, assimilating new experiences from birth to birth and becoming a fully evolved psychic personality. That is why Sri Aurobindo has also emphasized on that a rapid progress can be made when the psychic being comes in front, so that the personality develops, the psychic essence grows so much so that now it is a fully fledged psychic personality with tools of true mind, true vital, and true physical to now express and manifest the divine will. So, a personality which is a construct of nature is necessary for the action. And through development, through many lives, and it powerful not only in terms of political or monetary, but powerful in terms of thoughts, emotions, feelings, impulses, and also sometimes physical constitution. She says, now here there is a paradox that she'll bring out and also a word of caution. But by reason of the very character of personality, it easily tends to be drawn into the fatal illusion of its separate existence and become little by little a screen between thee and that on which thou willest to act. So in order to become a strong and complex personality or an evolved personality, one must first exist. But not only exist, one must become an individual, and also one must become a conscious individual. So that is the gradation. But strangely, what happens that bringing a consciousness into the personality can make us use it powerfully, and this very strong character of the personality gives it the illusion of insisting, acting, and expecting an outcome. Now, expecting an outcome is not really the problem, but the difficulty is to get attached to a particular outcome and insist on it. That's where the separativeness starts coming, and that's where the action, even after it has been done, can be nullified by this separativeness. The action does not manifest fully if this thought of separate I and insistence on a particular outcome, because I am this, I have worked like this, I have put in this effort, I expect a particular kind of result and an outcome, this can be the hindrance. And this is the paradox, that we are rising, the personality is growing, the individual is growing, it is becoming more and more conscious. But by the very fact of this inertia of the rise in consciousness also comes this kind of a separative problem. So Sri Aurobindo has written his famous lines, when we have passed beyond individualizing, we shall be real persons. Ego was the helper, ego is the bar. So in developing the individual, how else is the individual going to acknowledge that he is an individual, become an individual, and become an independent individual capable of doing the work? So we have so many individuals, and the ego is helping in making and developing this individual. But as one rises in consciousness, and as one starts moving towards the psychic development, or the psychic personality develops, then if the person is clinging to the ego, then ego will be an obstruction. This I now will become an obstruction. And it is one of the most difficult things to overcome. Now, Sri Aurobindo also says that ego is fundamentally nothing real in itself. It is only a practical constitution of our consciousness to centralize the activities of nature in us. The nature, the universal nature is there. So it just helps us to centralize those activities of nature which are beneficial to us, around which we can grow, around which we can harmonize and rise to the next ladder, next rung in the ladder of consciousness. And its role, the role of ego is only to help us become an individual and know ourselves. And why at all should we know ourselves? What is the need? It is so that we can align everything in us for the divine work. And that is why this alignment is necessary. Ego brings us to that stage where we can see this, where we can function as an instrument. But in order to become fully the instrument of the divine, now the ego has to be nullified. It has to be, you can say, it has to collapse, or it has to be given up. So the I, or the ego, is an indispensable point of reference. It is that point of reference for the one who has been chosen, or rather, who has descended to transform the world in the likeness of the divine. But the inevitable necessity of retaining the I poses the constant problem of the I asserting itself. That is where the problem comes, at the cost of oneness with the Lord. So it is I. The moment we say I am the doer, and we say, instead of saying all greatness is divine's or all greatness is God's, we start crowing loudly, oh, how great I am, in many different ways. So this admixture of I, the karta, the doer, would have to be completely rooted out. And any pride of being the karta, any vanity of being the doer, even the feeling that I am the chosen instrument of the divine, that itself is a very difficult part of the sadhana of self-purification, to give it up. Also, when one rises, when the individual develops into a strong individual, it becomes even more difficult to identify this. And even as the psychic personality develops, it's not that the ego has vanished completely. It hides in very subtle ways. and only through life experiences, and only through an aspiration to become the true instrument of the divine is one able to overcome it. If the individual starts thinking that I have reached a stage where I am able to see this in myself and I can overcome it, that is also the separate I. Because one has to realize it is the divine who is doing the sadhana in us. It is the divine who is the doer. So, this I cannot exist as a separate I. It has to be considered, it has to be believed, it has to be taken as a part of the divine, as a part of thee. It is not I now, it is to be given to thee. That it is a part of thee which has been given to me for just for functionality. And the mother is calling this as the fatal illusion. Now, why should she use such a strong word as fatal illusion? I thought over it for a long time. And then I realized that it is fatal indeed, because it can undo the long, laborious preparation over so many births in one jerk. In one instance, all that can be, it can collapse. So that is why this illusion is fatal in the sense that it can actually demolish whatever, as an individual you have gained or grown into the psychic personality. And then again, it is going to be another laborious process to start. And this illusion of being the I, separate I, then it becomes so much of a veil or a screen between the divine and the one who is supposed to do the divine work. Then it is a veil, and to remove that veil will take further many, many more lifetimes perhaps. So the sense of the doer obscures the very purpose of the action. The mother says, it's a very interesting passage which is written by the mother in this prayer. Not at the beginning, in the manifestation, but in the transmission of the return. That is to say, instead of being as a faithful servant, an intermediary who brings back to thee exactly what is thy due. Now, ego is not the difficulty in the beginning. Illusion comes most when the task is done and when it is time for credits. It is there that it pops up its head and creates this feeling of I, only when the task is done. She further says, the forces sent forth in reply to thy action, there is a tendency in the personality to want to keep for itself a part of the forces. The personality may know that these are the divine forces which are now coming and acting through it, but it just wants to cling to that I am the chosen one, I am the worker, I am the doer, and it has been given to me. With the idea, it is I who have done this or that, I who am thanked. Pernicious illusion, destructive, obscure falsehood. And this feeling of separateness is false, it is an illusion, because everything is the divine. How can you be separate from the divine? And unmasked. And she says, now are you discovered and unmasked. Means she has reached that stage that where she is, she's able to recognize this, and now this illusion, this deep-rooted idea or illusion of being a separate being is unmasked at this stage. And this illusion can actually nullify the rise in the consciousness and become an obstacle. And so instead of taking the next higher level of spirituality, one actually goes down. So the illusion of the separate I is like a, mother goes on to say, it is like a canker. That is the maleficent canker corroding the fruit of the action. So action has already been taken, but just by the mere fact that because of me the action has taken place, now it is like a canker, it is like a worm hiding, and slowly it is corroding. It is not evident in the beginning. In the beginning it is working fine, but only when the action has been taken action has taken place and something has been achieved, that this self-glorification comes. So instead of giving credit to the divine, we start giving credit to ourselves and we feel very inflated. Now, many of the ancient sages and seers, they were aware of this kind of problems, which they somehow felt that it is there in the outer world. And so to get into that union with the static Brahman consciousness, they shunned all outer life. And they kept themselves very, not into the situation, or they did not go out. They led a very secluded life, thinking that now the only role is a static, you can say, union and going to the next higher level of consciousness. And that can be achieved by only an inner contemplation or reflection or meditation or tapasya or whatever they called. But Sri Aurobindo and the mother, they accepted life as it is. And yoga is through life. In each and every aspect of life, there is yoga. So the Divine Mother, she walked on a razor's edge all the time. No? She had to ride the tiger of ego. She had to also deal with money, where people say money is, money, the connotations given to money. She dealt with money as a powerful, you can say, tool to bring about changes, good changes in the world. And she had to keep away this separate identity of the I, so as to tell us, so as to teach us what is the way of going out of it. Because if she did not come like us, she once said to a disciple, somebody had asked her, Mother, why did you come like this? Why did you not come in your supreme form, that highest form? Why did you come like one of us? So Mother said, if I did not come like one of you, how could I tell you, become what I am? How could I show you the process? How could I tell you, now do this? Because these are the challenges of the physical life. So and if one reads the prayers and meditations, it is full of these kind of trajectories, the trials and tribulations that the mother underwent. And this is a huge guide, one can say, guide for any seeker, if we just read these prayers and meditations. So one has to be an instrument of the divine, always with the full consciousness of the power acting from within. And then she also gives us the solution. When we are facing this kind of an illusion, we are caught in this kind of an illusion, what to do? She gives a beautiful sutra. And that is, you'll see, that it is a partnership between the ego and the soul. It's a partnership. She says, O Lord, O my sweet master, soul reality. Again, she uses this word twice. And in the same way she uses it, soul reality, dispel the feeling of the I. I have now understood that so long as there will be a manifested universe, the I will remain necessary for thy manifestation. To dissolve or even to diminish or weaken the I is to deprive thee of the means of manifestation in part or whole. So for those who are on this path, spiritually inclined, then it is a task. This is the crux. And this is perhaps the last and the most difficult summit to achieve. To become a powerful and perfect instrument of the divine, and then offer this personality at the feet of the Lord, yet never to have this illusion that I have done this, I have been successful. It is I who am putting myself at the feet of the Lord. So Sri Aurobindo had spoken about, very interestingly, about self-individuality and self-universality. And he said, know both together. You cannot know them separately. And when you know them together, you will also realize the part the individual is playing in the universal. So the self in the universal and the universal in the self. So self-individualization and self-universality. One cannot do away with the ego. That's what the mother is saying. Ego is essential. It is necessary. And as long as the manifested universe is there, this I, you cannot diminish its power or you cannot neglect it. So one has to, in the beginning, that is why those kind of tasks, even in education and wherever we see, the more the task, challenging task is given to the child is able to bring out those skills. So depending on the level of evolution, one is also able to fathom the situation, one is able to pick and choose from the situation for one's growth to become a stronger individual. So ego is necessary. Why will I not work hard in my studies? Why will I not get to that degree? Why will I not get that job? I need it. Yes, these are also very essential. So doing that, in the process of doing that, one becomes a strong individual, doing everything by myself. I want to learn to do everything by myself. There is nothing wrong in that. In fact, it is very good. So a powerful individual is created with the help of ego, and thereafter, when the individual is ready now to become the instrument, further challenges will come. But this ego then has to be kept aside. Aside in the sense, you acknowledge the ego, you keep working as you are doing, but offering everything, the fruit of the action, every action to the divine, knowing that it is the divine. Without the divine, we do not exist also. And nothing can get manifested or expressed without the divine. It is the divine working in me. To that extent, the ego is justified. And after that, if we go on saying, the divine working in me only, I am special, then that is where the problem comes. Also, one may also take the example of notes and symphony, the musical notes. Maitridi was also singing. You saw beautiful melodies she was singing. So she was using, while singing, she was using a lot of notes. Otherwise the melody can't be created. So unless the notes are there, how can the symphony get created? But is it that only a particular note starts saying, I have to play this many times, and I go on playing only that very high-pitched note or that low note again and again and again? So the symphony will not be symphony. It will not be a manifestation of a symphony at all. So the notes are playing their part individually, and the symphony is the larger picture. Symphony is the manifestation that we see. So once we have individualized, we also have to realize that others have also individualized, and this individualization has been given to me for the collective. And once one starts doing that, the ego, even while being there, it's working, but it does not assert itself. It does not create this illusion of me doing everything. So, and that is why we have been made differently. Each one of us is different. We have different abilities, different skills. We progress differently. So it is all because everything is moving towards a greater harmony, taking help from everybody, acknowledging everybody's. So there is not, if I am doing a particular thing, doesn't make me great. Even the person who is doing less has contributed me sufficiently. And so we acknowledge that. And it means that we require a large excess of humility in us. Mother says, but what must be radically and definitively suppressed is the illusory thought, the illusory feeling, the illusory sensation of the separate I. At no moment, in no circumstance must we forget that our I has no reality outside thee. So total humility is asked of us. And so if we say, let us till the fields of the Lord, let us water his garden, let us fight his battles, and let us lay the fruit, the grains, and our successes and also our defeat at his feet. Everything is for him to decide to the way he wants us to take. And not taking credit that it is I who am doing this. And in fact, it is very interesting. Our successes are a greater challenge for us. Defeat, everybody is able to take. We know that why we try to seek the answers, why we have been defeated, but to take successes also in the same stride and go on offering them. So the I has a tendency to poke its nose more during the successes. The mother says, and she concludes the prayer with something very beautiful. She talks of a shadowless light. O my sweet Master, my divine Lord, tear out from my heart this illusion, so that thy servant may become pure and faithful, and faithfully and integrally bring back to thee all that is thy due. So maybe fulfill our purpose in life, and our purpose in life is to become a true instrument of the divine, and there is a union with the divine can happen only if we become the true instrument of the divine. The world will become a beautiful place. So divine life in a divine body. So in silence, let me contemplate and understand this supreme ignorance and dispel it forever. So one has to retrospect, one has to go within, one has to contemplate and reflect whether we are, and also keep the aspiration very high. Now, Mother somewhere has said that willingly and voluntarily, nobody falls into this trap of ego. It is only when we forget that we are likely to go into this illusory state. So one, we have, and Mother has again given the mantra, remember and offer, remember and offer. And keep the aspiration very high to be of service to the divine. These are the two things Mother has talked of very strongly. She has also given a very high connotation to service. So when we do, or when we act and do anything with the, you can say the feeling of service to the divine, offering to the divine, then that itself takes care of a lot many illusions that may pop up now and again. So basically the Mother is talking, chase the shadow from my heart and let thy light reign in it. So a shadowless light, only light. Reign in it, its uncontested sovereign, where it is the rightful place. Basically the Mother is showing us how. Be conscious of the I and be conscious of it as a part of the divine. Not to completely dissolve it, but putting it in the right perspective. Let us read the prayer again. Pondicherry, April 17, 1914. O Lord, O Almighty Master, sole reality, grant that no error, no obscurity, no fatal ignorance may creep into my heart and my thought. In action, the personality is the inevitable and indispensable intermediary of thy will and thy forces. The stronger, the more complex, powerful, individualized and conscious is the personality, the more powerfully and usefully can the instrument serve. But by reason of the very character of personality, it easily tends to be drawn into the fatal illusion of its separate existence and become, little by little, a screen between thee and that on which thou willest to act. Not at the beginning, in the manifestation, but in the transmission of the return. That is to say, instead of being, as a faithful servant, an intermediary who brings back to thee exactly what is thy due, the forces sent forth in reply to thy action, there is a tendency in the personality to want to keep for itself a part of the forces with this idea, it is I who have done this or that. I who am thanked, pernicious illusion, obscure falsehood, now are you discovered and unmasked. That is the maleficent canker corroding the fruit of the action, falsifying all its results. O Lord, O my sweet Master, soul reality, dispel this feeling of the I. I have now understood that so long as there will be a manifested universe, the I will remain necessary for thy manifestation. To dissolve or even to diminish or weaken the I is to deprive thee of the means of manifestation in whole or part. But what must be radically and definitively suppressed is the illusory thought, the illusory feeling, the illusory sensation of the separate I. At no moment, in no circumstances, must we forget that our I has no reality outside thee. O my sweet Master, my divine Lord, tear out from my heart this illusion, so that thy servant may become pure and faithful, and faithfully and integrally bring back to thee all that is thy due. In silence, let me contemplate and understand this supreme ignorance and dispel it forever. Chase the shadow from my heart and let thy light reign in it, its uncontested sovereign. Open to reflections. Anybody would like to add or? Yes.
In your talk, you mentioned service to divinity, and obviously our impressions and the previous karmas in the mind is obstructing seeing the divinity. And one of the things which Mother did not use the word is a karma yoga, when we offer ourselves to do work for others and don't expect anything. So that is one way of doing that, bringing clarity to the mind. As well, it will eliminate the duality as well. Thank you.
Just a little reflection. This prayer is in a way an amplification of what the Gita says. The self is a helper, and the self can also be an enemy. Or what Sri Aurobindo has said, the ego is the helper and ego is the bar. And it can be both, and both are necessary. An analogy that occurred to me was that of an ice cube. When you expose the water to a very low temperature, it becomes ice cubes. And what the solid cube can do, water cannot. So the existence of the cube is essential. And what separates the individual cubes in the ice tray are little walls. W-A-L-L, wall. Now, the cube can be conscious of its being water, and also it's of being a cube, a solid cube. The trick is to be both simultaneously. Because what happens is that when we think of ourselves as an individual and are doing something, we forget that we are part of a larger reality, or in fact, we are that ultimate soul reality in a different individualized form. It's a sort of a condensation, the way the ice cube is a condensation of water as a result of exposure to a low temperature. In the same way, we are condensations of that soul reality as a result of that soul reality manifesting itself. Now, what is it that makes this cube simultaneously also be conscious of its being water? Is there something that facilitates it? What facilitates it is to remember that I am this cube as a result of low temperature. When the temperature goes up, there's some warmth, then I'll be also the same water. And in the same way, what helps us be conscious, also the fact that we are not just separate individuals, but also that soul reality of which everything else is also a manifestation, is to feel that oneness as a result of love. So the love is in fact that antidote which helps us realize that this ego is only a partial reality. It is necessary for a limited purpose, but a larger and deeper reality is that oneness. And love makes us conscious of it. So what is love? Love has a warmth. So the cube should be conscious, has to be conscious simultaneously of not just being an individual cube in the form in which it can do something, but it also has to be conscious that the deeper layer of reality is what is that oneness, and that oneness will come as a result of the warmth of love. So another type of wall, the WALL and the WOL wall, both walls existing simultaneously.